Hello everybody, Elijah Williams with Williams Built Blades and Fire Creek Forge. Today I'm going to show you how I make or forge a leaf, and something that you can put on a keychain or use as a keychain or a pendant, what have you. So kind of a neat little art piece. I am using 3/8 inch square hot roll stock, which is or hot rolled stock I should say. It's a mild steel, so it's inexpensive and simple to work. The first thing I'm going to do is put a point on the end of this stock here, and I'm going to come to the edge of the anvil so I'm not striking the edge of my hammer on the anvil as much, or at all, preferably. I'm going to strike on two sides of the stock, because the anvil's on the other side each time. That takes care of all four sides. So this is going to be the point of the leaf. Now if you want a longer, skinnier leaf, go ahead and forge that out a little bit longer and skinnier, and a shorter, rounder leaf, you're going to leave that more obtuse. But that's all there is to it right there. So as you can see, since hopefully you can see, since I was forging on only two sides, you can see that the angle is on two sides, and then the other two sides is kind of flat if you were to hold it on the anvil. So, but that's absolutely not a problem. That actually helps in the next part of the process, or during the process. So the next stage is I'm going to start creating the stem of the leaf and differentiating between the round or the flat part of the leaf and the stem. Excuse me. So get this back up to heat here and go to work on it. If you guys could see my camera rig, you would laugh. It's pretty redneck, comprised of some wire, but hopefully it allows me to show you guys what I'm doing here. I currently do not have any video editing capability with my normal camera, so I am making do. So alright, get this back up to heat here. I'm going to come to the edge of the anvil and use the rounding side of my hammer to do half on, half off blows, do a quarter turn and repeat the process, go back and forth with that. So I want to end up with essentially equal steel movement, stock movement on both sides. So mostly equal blows, assuming I'm using the same amount of force with each strike. So that's what you end up with right there, and I forged that down to probably about 3/16 inch wide at the widest part. And hopefully you can see that there. So that's what you have, if my camera will focus. So this portion right here is going to be the main part of the leaf, and that's going to be the stem. So let's heat this back up here. Go ahead and flatten that out slightly. Go ahead and heat this back up here, and the next part of the process is going to be flattening out the main part of the leaf. And again, I'll be using the rounding side of my hammer. Now this is part of the process where you're going to start learning how to use the different dies on your hammer. And what I mean by that is a die, if you think of a die as essentially a specifically shaped surface area to move steel, to forge steel in a specific and precise fashion. So you have more than one die on the same face of the same hammer, and that just all depends on how you hold your hammer and the angle that you hold it at. So if I use this rounding hammer and just hit completely flat or straight like this, that's a specific die, and that's just whatever this this round face of the hammer is. But if I come over here and hold it at an angle at any point along this what's the word, arc, then I'm changing the die that's actually contacting the metal, and that matters. So you're going to see what I'm talking about once you get into it. So I'm going to hold this stock corner-wise, and if you can see the part that's sticking up, that's not in line with the rest of the stock, that's the part that's going to be sticking up. But I'm going to do it corner-wise, and then I'm just going to start flattening it out. And initially I'm just going straight down, and it pretty much follows the shape by itself. But now I'm going to get into the corners a little bit, around the round portions next to the stem, and that's where you'll see using the different dies of the hammer, and then along the edge, try not to hit your anvil like I did. So I'm able to use the different dies to move the steel in a manner that I want to affect the shape that I'm after, and I kind of like that. So that's really pretty close. I might dress that up slightly. Now the steel is not incandescent anymore, meaning it is not glowing, but this being mild steel, it's probably still around 800, 900 degrees. It's still quite malleable, and you can still work it a little bit. You'll really notice it change plasticity under your hammer, so that's kind of a big indication, not just the color. So there you go. So the next thing is I'm going to go ahead and put the veins down the center and along the sides of the leaf that every real leaf has. Make this a neat, authentic project. I'm going to use a chisel to do that, and this is nothing more than a piece of 5/8 square 4140 stock that I forged into a chisel and heat treated, but since I've used it for a variety of different things, I think it's since lost its heat treat, and it probably needs to be touched up even right now. Yeah, it's pretty beat up, but I think it'll do okay to give us our veins on the leaf. Okay, so this is probably the most tedious part of the project here. What I like to do is kind of hold the leaf with my hammer while I am positioning my chisel, and then I can move my chisel around where I need it to go, and it's relatively simple. It's kind of a practiced technique, I guess you could say. And I definitely need to dress up my the edge of my chisel here, but for the purposes of this video, I think we'll be okay. So as you can see, the steel is no longer glowing, but it's still pretty workable. So I have veins in the leaf now, so you can see that a little bit. Now you can do more veins or less veins, and if you have a finer chisel, then you can create something slightly different. That's what we're doing there. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put a little bit of a curl into this leaf and make it look a lot more natural instead of just a flat piece of metal, because I've never seen a leaf that's actually flat unless it's been sitting in a book between some pieces of tissue paper, but that's kind of a different art medium. So I'm going to use my small ball peen hammer to do that part of the job, because being thin metal and hot, it doesn't take a whole lot to bend it. So I'm putting the veins into the shoulder of the anvil here and just kind of tapping that in there so it curls it on both sides, and then put a little bit more of a curl in there. And while it's still hot, you can see how much dimension it actually adds to it and makes it look a lot more like a leaf instead of a piece of metal. Give it a good brush with the the butcher block brush. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut it off of the piece of stock and finish out the stem portion. So go ahead and get this hot again. What I like to do is cut it most of the way off with the chisel and then just snap it off with a pair of tongs. And the reason I like to do it that way is because if you're not careful, you can send your leaf flying somewhere you don't want it to go. The other alternative would be to use a hardy, which would sit in here, which I don't have right now, so I'm going to be doing it this way. Alright, getting it back up to heat here. So this video being real time, it shows you, I guess, a little bit how quickly or how slowly, depending on your perspective, this project can go. If I can try to keep this in the view of the camera here, it's a little bit of a challenge. So, cut that most of the way through, and then whoops, sorry about that. Just break it off. Okay, so there you have it. There's that. Now we can finish out the stem, and that's a little bit more stock on there than I usually like to have, but I'm going to blame my somewhat abnormal camera rig setup for that. It's not a big deal. It just means that the stem is either going to be thicker or longer depending on where you go when you draw it out. I usually like to make the stem long enough to make a ring that's big enough for a normal keyring to fit through easily without binding up. So probably 3/16 minimum ring from the stem itself. So get that heated up here, and I'm going to come to the edge of the anvil here and start drawing that out. So one of the big things that I've noticed about this particular deal is that if you do too many blows on especially the edgewise side of your stock, it's going to basically fold into itself, and there's a technical name for that I can't remember at the moment, but you don't want that to happen. So just make sure that you're getting that stock worked down evenly. Otherwise you'll end up with essentially folds in your stem, and it'll break down the integrity pretty bad, or it can, and it doesn't work as well that way. So alright, get this heated back up again. We're probably going to have to take a couple of heats on this anyway, because the steel cools off fairly quickly. And you're just making it thinner as you go, so. Okay, so now I've got it about the length that it needs to be, so I'm going to go ahead and round off the corners a little bit. Make it look a little more natural as a stem instead of just square. So there you go. That stem's a little thicker than I normally make, but it'll be alright. So I'm going to go ahead and heat it back up again. Then we'll go ahead and curl it into a nice ring that'll allow it to be used as a keychain or a pendant, depending on what you want to do with it. And I usually use my small ball peen hammer for that, again, because it doesn't take much at all, and the smaller face is kind of nice to use on smaller stock. It's a little easier usually, so that's the reason for that. So So I'll come over to the horn of the anvil here and just start that curl like that. I hope this video, I hope you guys can see what's going on here. It's kind of hard to make sure that the camera is catching this. But anyway, just finish out the curl a little bit. Sometimes I like to kind of line up the eye a little bit more with the axis of the leaf so it sits kind of more in line, just kind of like that. So there you go. So that's it right there. And the last thing I do is go ahead and brush it down real well. That just helps the natural steel finish to come out real nicely. And the last thing you can do after you quench it and drop it down in there like that, no, just kidding, that's not part of the deal. Yeah, sometimes you can, whoops, I don't know if you can see it, but I've brushed it enough to where some of the steel is shiny, and there's enough heat still from the stem that it's putting oxidization colors onto that steel, so there's like some blue tinges and that kind of thing. So that's kind of neat, but it's not something I try for. Something that just seems to happen sometimes if the conditions are right. But I guess you could try for that to happen too, if you wanted. But anyway, so that's how I make a leaf. And what I was going to say is, after you've finished it and quenched it, you can heat it back up, kind of to almost to where you can't quite touch it heat, and then rub it down with beeswax, and that'll put a nice finish on it that will help it keep from rusting and keep that natural steel finish look to it. So anyway, that's that. Thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and have a great day.